I remember the morning they called me into Lawrence Sinclair's office as if it were yesterday, the way my coffee cup wobbled in my hand, how the office door's frosted glass transformed from familiar to forbidding. I'd been with Sinclair and Marlowe for 7 years, climbed from junior analyst to chief operations officer, the only person besides Lawrence himself who knew all the hidden cogs that kept the firm churning. I thought I was unfireable. I was wrong. "Sit," he said, voice flat as a boardroom table. His polished mahogany desk gleamed with morning light. Behind him, the skyline of downtown stretched into a perfect rectangle. I sat. He motioned to the empty chair opposite him, angled as though awaiting a second guest. Confusion bubbled in my chest. I set my cup on the small side table, deliberately. "Lawrence, what's up?" He cleared his throat, glanced at the other chair as if summoning courage. "Victoria's here," he said. My heart tripped. Victoria Sinclair, Lawrence's daughter, fresh out of an Ivy's law school, parachuted into the firm 6 months ago as Associate Special Projects, a title no one really understood. She'd been cosseted, mentored, fast-tracked. Her presence in the office had been the corporate equivalent of a velvet rope. It opened doors, but also caused those doors to slam shut for the rest of us. "Victoria," I echoed. "She's joining us," he said. Then to the empty chair, "Victoria, come in." The door opened as if it had remembered an appointment, and she swept in, Victoria in her crisp pencil skirt and silk blouse, cheeks flushed with purpose. Her smile was practiced, a little too perfect. As always, it felt like a shield. She closed the door behind her, and perched on the edge of the seat, knees together, hands folded. I swallowed. "Is there something I need to know?" Lawrence exchanged a look with Victoria, silent, telegraphed. Then he exhaled. "Sam, I've been reviewing the org chart." He paused. "And we need to make room." Victoria's smile thinned. "I spoke with HR. There's a role open in client strategy, as head of the team. Sam's position is being eliminated." Her voice was clipped and professional. I could almost hear the HR red tape fluttering behind her words. Shock knotted my throat. "You're firing me because you're promoting her?" The words tasted absurd on my tongue. Victoria's eyes flicked to Lawrence. "We wanted to avoid a direct reporting conflict. We discussed it at length." She turned back to me. "I'm sorry, Sam." Lawrence nodded. "I'm truly sorry. You've been invaluable. But corporate governance demands separation." Victoria finished. I stood, my chair scraping against the carpet, echoing in the silent room. "So you're firing your COO to bring in your daughter?" Lawrence winced. "It's not like that. And you expect me to stay by and what? Cheer? Do you realize how ridiculous this looks?" They both looked uncomfortable. I flicked open a file in my head. All the nights I'd put out fires, the systems I'd built, the client relationships I'd nurtured. Victoria had taken partial credit. Her special projects cloak had borrowed my brainchild, the automated client feedback loop I'd designed. She'd presented it as a bold new initiative, and snared half the credit at last quarter's board dinner. She'd taken my work and rebranded it. Now she'd taken my job. I counted to 10 before I spoke. "Pack it up," I said. "My last day is today." I turned on my heel and left them in the stale hush of that office, my pride scorched but intact. I walked through the firm's corridors, 7 floors of beige cubicles, sleek conference rooms named after philosophers, the trading floor humming like a hive. A tap on my shoulder, Gina from HR, clutching a severance packet. "Sam, I'm so sorry." Her voice trembled. I stuck my hand out for the packet. She pressed it into my grip, then backed away. I read the top line, "Severance agreement and general release," in glossy font. I gave her a small nod and kept walking. I passed the espresso bar, where Gina, my partner in caffeine, usually loaded me up on double shots. The barista offered a sympathetic eyebrow. When I reached my office, a sunlit corner suite, I found my team waiting. Michael, team lead; Janelle, operations manager; Malik, project coordinator. Each face registered shock, sorrow. Sam, the mentor. Sam, the rock. Sam, the reason the team hit every KPI. They rose as I entered. Michael swallowed, cleared his throat. "We were sorry, Sam." I forced a smile. "You did great work. Keep running operations like you've been doing." I'll be available on email until close of business to handle the handoff. Janelle wiped her eyes. We'll miss you. I looked around at the faces I'd spent mornings and nights with, building dashboards in war rooms. My throat tightened. Keep in touch. I patted Michael's shoulder and closed the door for the last time. On the elevator ride down, I considered the absurdity. I'd built a firm process that delivered 30% efficiency gains, a process that generated an extra $8 million in revenue last year. Yet I'd been summarily dismissed. Victoria, with her polished Polaroid of nepotism, had my seat. The irony folded in on me. Though I'd been fired, I owned the very systems that drove their success. 3 hours later, I sat in my modest home office, an L-shaped desk buried under dual monitors, design books, and a whiteboard scrawled with Project Phoenix. I poured a stiff bourbon over ice and let its amber burn down. My phone buzzed, an email from our legal department CC'd to the board, confirming my termination and final payout. There was a second hidden attachment: equity interests. My stock option grants for Sinclair and Marlowe, 6 figures vesting over the next 2 years. Those options, I realized, belonged to me still, vested, recorded, undeniable. A slow grin crept across my face. I swiveled my chair back to the whiteboard. I rewrote the title, Phoenix, the Next Level. Underneath, bullet points. Launch independent consulting venture. Secure client testimonials from Sinclair execs. Acquire small stake in Sinclair through direct option exercise. Build out global ops framework. Undermine viability of nepotistic structure. Yes, they thought they'd fired me, but I controlled the very gears of their machine. My options, my IP, the automated workflows, the vendor portals were mine to leverage. I drank the bourbon, mind racing with angles. Victoria would marshal her charm and law degree, but I held something invincible, the proprietary CLM system I built for them. She'd never wrote a line of that code. My consulting firm, Phoenix Ops, would offer to take over her inherited tasks, systematize her innovations, and propose an acquisition of the firm's operations wing, funded by silent investors I already had courting interest. They'd be forced to buy me out, or watch their empire grind to a halt when the servers went dark. I tapped out an email to a headhunter contact, available operational architect, specialty restructuring through digital transformation. I hit send, then I dialed Michael. Hey, it's Sam. Let's talk. He answered on the first ring, surprised. Sam? I thought you were... I'm fine, I said. Meet me at the old cafe downtown in 20 minutes. I'll buy you coffee. 20 minutes later, we sat across from each other in a corner booth of the Blue Mug. Michael stirred his latte nervously as I slid a manila folder across the table. What's this? He asked, flipping it open. Your ops playbook, I said. The entire digital procurement framework, version control, vendor rate sheets, SLA auto-renewal clauses. It's all here, documented. And under my consulting agreement, you can license it from me. His eyes widened. You licensed it to us? Not yet, I said. But it's enforceable IP. If you want the firm to keep using it, you'll need to pay Phoenix Ops a consulting fee, $250 an hour, plus 1% equity in your parent company. Otherwise, shut it off. I'll give you the credentials. He gulped. You can't be serious. I sipped my coffee. Hey, I am. Think of it as an inheritance that came with your sister's promotion. He closed the folder, head spinning. Let me talk to the board. Board's in for a treat, I said. Standing, tell them Phoenix Ops is open 24/7. My line's in the folder. I walked out into the busy street, my phone beeping with new LinkedIn messages. VPs in healthcare, energy, fintech, everyone wanted to know about digital efficiency. My parents' call came seconds later. I answered without greeting. I have an idea, I said, smiling in the crisp afternoon air. Let's talk. Inside the grand office where Lawrence had fired me, I strode back in weeks later, Phoenix Ops letterhead in hand. The boardroom was packed. Sinclair himself, Victoria, COO Miranda, head of HR, even legal counsel sweating beneath bright fluorescent lights. I placed a file on the table. They looked at me, eyes wide, mouths gaping. Victoria shifted, purse pressed tight. Lawrence cleared his throat. Sam, you're back? I nodded. Phoenix Ops has been retained to license and operate your entire digital framework. Schedule and licensing agreement are here. I tapped the folder. Per your governance. I hold the IP assignment. Either you sign this or your systems go dark. Silence roared. The board chair swallowed. Victoria paled. Sisterly smirks evaporated. The gavel of the universe had descended. Will sign. My lips curved. Excellent. As they scribbled their acceptance, I realized that being fired for my sister had been the bait. They'd thought nepotism trumped merit. But merit, my bloody line, had outlasted every misguided loyalty. Now I owned everything they worked for. And that, dear reader, is the beginning of a new dynasty. One built not on inheritance, but on the value of a mind they once tried to discard. I am Sam Sinclair, fired, forgotten, and now irrevocably in control. The boardroom's hush stretched taut as attorneys passed the licensing agreement around the gleaming table. Victoria's usually pristine posture slumped. Her father's eyes darted to me with a mixture of pride, shame, and relief. It was a tableau of family betrayal and corporate pragmatism gussied up in Armani suits. I cleared my throat, flipping open the agreement. Clause 4.1. Phoenix Ops shall receive $250/hour for operational support and 1% of equity in Sinclair and Marlowe, payable quarterly over 4 years. Clause 7.8. Phoenix Ops retains IP rights to digital procurement, contract lifecycle management, and vendor portal code. Clause 9.2. Should Phoenix Ops cease services, all source code, credentials, and admin keys revert exclusively to Phoenix Ops. Miranda, newly installed COO, swallowed. Sam, are you sure? I met her gaze. Absolutely. You're welcome to build your own system from scratch. But a firm of this scale, 300 employees, $1 billion book of business, rebuilding would take 2 years, cost untold millions, and leave you exposed in the interim. I tapped my pen. Or you sign today and we hit the ground running. Lawrence laced his fingers. Let's get this over with. Over the next 15 minutes, signatures traced the bottom of every page. My parents arrived in person to witness their son's ascension from pariah to savior. Mom's eyes shimmered. Dad's chin lifted. Victoria and I exchanged a cautious nod. Family lines frayed but not forever broken. 6 months later, a new era had blossomed at Sinclair and Marlowe. The boardroom table bore the emblem, Phoenix Ops, Sinclair and Marlowe Partnership. I held the title of Chief Integration Officer, sitting alongside Lawrence and Miranda as equal shareholders. My salary was a comfortable 6-figure number, but I still leaned on consulting revenues from external clients, public companies, and startups that coveted my deep, battle-tested expertise. Our first project, migrating the old on-premise contract management servers to a secure cloud cluster, I'd architected multi-region failover, encryption at rest, AI-driven anomaly detection for rogue renewals. We cut costs by 18%, accelerated vendor onboarding by 45%, and won praise from Fortune 500 clients. Victoria, with her Ivy League law training, drafted the new compliance policies around the tech, making the once-hated CLM suite bulletproof against audits. At the annual holiday party, now co-hosted by Phoenix Ops and Sinclair and Marlowe, we toasted our joint success. Champagne flutes clinked beneath wreaths and fairy lights, the caterers serving foie gras canapés and champagne-laced macarons. Lawrence took the mic. I stand here proud, he beamed, voice echoing off marble columns, of a partnership born of adversity, and of the man who refused to vanish, who rose from what could have been ruin to lead us into a bright tomorrow. My COO, my partner, and my son, Sam Sinclair. The crowd erupted in applause. I kept the smile genuine, though I felt the old pang of discomfort under the spotlight. I caught Victoria's eye. She mouthed, "I'm proud." My heart swelled, but success is never linear. 9 months into our alliance, a crisis broke. Dynacor Pharmaceuticals, our largest supplier, announced bankruptcy. The automated renewals I'd put in place had pulled us into a $32 million default when payments were automatic every quarter. Within hours, vendors balked at payment clearance. Our equity partners' emails flooded my inbox with emergency subject lines. Late that night, I crashed in my office, staring at cascading red alerts on my consoles. My phone buzzed, Lawrence's name, urgent. I swiped open the video call. "Sam," he rasped, face lit by desk lamp. "You have to fix this." I took a steadying breath. I'm on it. The next 72 hours were a crucible. I assembled a war room. Miranda leading legal teams on emergency procurement contracts, Victoria liaising with insurance brokers over credit lines, and me orchestrating alternative suppliers via my personal Rolodex. I bypassed frozen vendors, used manual overrides to halt the automatic payment chute, and rerouted invoices through escrow accounts I set up in Singapore. By hour 60, we had provisional supply lines restored at minimal penalty, and our stock price had settled. At dawn on day 4, I staggered into the boardroom, sludge-eyed and 2 shirts deep in Kraft mac and cheese. Lawrence was leaning against the table, watching the ticker up 2%. He held out a Starbucks cup. Black, 2 sugars, your code. I blinked. I've been surviving on coffee and adrenaline. He laughed, a genuine bark of relief. You saved us again, thank you. I cracked a grin. Just another day at the office. At home that weekend, I crashed on my couch, exhausted in muscle and mind. My phone pinged an email from Dynacor's interim CFO offering me a consulting retainer to architect their Chapter 11 recovery. I laughed out loud. Once the software moonlighting executive, now the white knight in a bankruptcy saga. Another ping, LinkedIn recruiter. Your crisis management work is legendary. Want to join our board? The message cut off at $200K retainer. I sighed. Too many opportunities, too much momentum. I scrolled to the last message, a text from Maya, my high school best friend. Saw you on the news. Sinclair and Marlowe's COO saves giant supplier meltdown. Proud of you. I typed back. Thanks. Remember cafeteria rumors of Burberry blankets? She replied with a heart emoji and journey, right? Keep flying. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I grinned and hit home, knowing I'd land wherever I chose. 6 months later, I sat in a local cafe. Cellar ceiling, Edison bulbs, single origin pour-overs, drafting my next portfolio shift, Phoenix Ops Launchpad, a venture arm funding tech startups in the operations space. On my right wrist lay a subtle tattoo, a phoenix rising from stylized code lines. On my left, my mother had slipped a charm bracelet with delicate silver charms, a Burberry icon, a tiny barbell to mark my marathon finish, and a microchip for my software legacy. I raised my cup in a silent toast to the lies that tried to bury me, to the betrayal that forced me out, and to the empire I'd quietly seized. I'd been fired from my sister, yet it turned out only the phoenix could rise from those forbidden ashes. Because they never realized you can fire the COO, you can banish the architect, but you can't unwrite the code. And you can never contain a legacy born of fire and reforged in the crucible of ambition. My phone buzzed again, Victoria's name, with a reminder ping for our monthly strategy call. I tapped accept, refilling my mug. Good morning, boss, her voicemail chirped. Let's talk about that AI integration. Love you, see you soon. I smiled widely. The titles COO, CIO, founder meant little. What mattered was ownership of systems, of value, of destiny. And as I sipped my coffee, I knew I'd never be an invisible junior analyst again, because I secretly owned everything they worked for, and now I was ready to build the next chapter.